All right, Michelle Group, we will get started. Welcome everyone to the second panel and the RPOA conference. Glad you could join us. We will start the panel. I'll kick it off to Michelle and give you the time for the discussion. Welcome everyone again.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lamise. Good afternoon and welcome to Tips and Tricks to Tackle Recruitment Marketing Strategy in Today's Market. As Lamise said, my name is Michelle Krier, and I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today. We have a fantastic group of speakers, and I know we're going to have a really robust discussion over the next 45 minutes that touches on things like diversity and inclusion, vaccine mandates, technology, and much, much more. Before we get started, though, I wanted to give our panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves. So, David Coe, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Coe, and I'm with Orion Talent, based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. For those of you who are not familiar with this, Orion is a leading mid-market RPO and military talent solution provider, and we're excited to be a part of today's RPOA Con 2021. So thanks for the time.
Wonderful. Thanks. Angela, why don't you go next?
Thank you so much. I'm Angela Hood. I'm the president and CEO of This Way Global. We are out of Austin, Texas, and we focus on sourcing and matching all people to all jobs. We work across all sectors, primarily mid-market to enterprise. And key thing that we focus on is removing the bias in the process so we can help you increase your diversity. Love being here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Wonderful. And let's round out the introductions with Julia.
Hi, thanks, Michelle. Hi, I'm Julia Kershawth. I'm with ADP, specifically within the recruitment process outsourcing division. I'm based out of Findlay, Ohio. I've been with ADP for about 7 years. And I am a solution design consultant, primarily focusing on employer brand activation services for our RPO clients. Nice to meet everyone.
Great. Thanks you, everyone. Let's get underway. I know when we did our practice session last week, we definitely had a lot to cover while we were prepping. So let's jump right in here. We're now about 18 months into COVID-19, and employers are still navigating their way around this very fluid talent market. We continue to hear stories about ghosting or candidates not showing for interviews, not showing for work, opting out of the recruiting process without a word. And in fact, in the session right before this one, Jason Crumwhitey from Broadleaf mentioned that ghosting is at an all-time high. So let's start there. What steps can employers take to try to minimize this from happening at their organizations? And I guess I'll open it up to any of my panelists here. Julia, David, Angela, who wants to jump in and answer this first one on ghosting?
I can go ahead and take it right off the gate here. As I mentioned, my primary focus, I know from Angela and David have a little different perspective here, so I'll be excited to hear what they have to say as well. But from a marketing perspective and an employer brand perspective, my role for our RPO clients is really to help get those job seekers, whether they're active or passive, in the door. And those are through creative solutions. And some of the creative solution best practices that I have been working with my clients have been primarily using tools like social media, email communication, and mobile text alerts, and making sure that they're timely and relevant, and they're transparent, accurate, and kind of covering everything that makes that company and that organization seem like, very true and authentic as far as a great place to work. So first and foremost, from my marketing perspective, is communicating that this is who we are, this is what it's like to work here, and making sure you're weeding out talent that is, these are the candidates that actually are interested in working for you versus those that are, hey, I'm just looking for any job. So the more relevant your pipeline can become, the more easier it is to kind of keep them engaged throughout the process. Now, there's other solutions like making sure that you're timely with your responses. So whether that be navigating social media platforms and seeing questions come in through there, having some kind of response management, whether it's, hey, here's the link directly to this job opportunity, here's what we're offering as far as a pay, here are our benefits. So the more we can communicate to them right before they even get to the application process, I'm finding are some of the best practices in the solutions that I'm providing.
Yeah, to follow up what Julia said, I think the authenticity, it matters so much more than it ever has before. People can see through the fake and they don't like it, and they won't even bother to apply, much less will they actually show up for the job. But I think one of the things that we've learned is one way does not suit all. And so we have to be really thoughtful about how we approach the candidate experience and the applicant process, which for some companies is absolutely terrible. And it's disrespectful to the talent. And that's, I think, part of the way they kind of lash out is they don't show up for interviews and they don't show up for the job. So I think being more respectful, but lastly is, we're a tech company, and when we analyze the background of the job descriptions that go out, we find that you can't approach every region or location with the exact same job description and same job title. So I encourage people to, manually, if you don't have technology to do it, then manually run some A/B testing. And, think a little bit outside the box about how you can invite really strong applicants into the workflow and then treat them with respect. And I think that they'll treat us with respect too. I think that's where the industry has really been lacking in many ways.
Well, and that's a really nice segue even into the next topic that I wanted us to all touch on today, which is the fact that there are so many different generations out there in the workforce. Again, we heard about that at Zach's keynote at the top of the conference today. But even when we think about the different types of workers and the different types of roles that are out there, recruitment marketing tactics definitely have to vary across industries. So when you think about some industry specific recruitment marketing practices that you see working effectively, Julia, David, what are you seeing out there with the clients that you're working with?
David, do you want to take this one first, or?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And thanks, Michelle. I think that, actually, even though it's a slightly different question, we're talking about recruitment marketing that's being proven to be effective today versus ghosting, which was our previous question. A lot of the same correlations can still apply. And the first recommendation that I would make to any employer that's participating in our event today, or taking notes or listening, or maybe is going to see this as a recorded session later on, is be open-minded and take the advice and consideration of the input that you're getting from your talent partners very seriously, whether it's an internal talent acquisition or HR resource that you're using to fill jobs today, or you're using a third party or an external partner like us or ADP or anybody else that's out there. The market is not only so different than it was 12 months ago, it's also changing almost quarterly. And we're seeing 3 to 5 month new posture from all sorts of job seekers up and down the talent spectrum, exempt and non-exempt, and job family unspecific. And so what I think it's really forced a lot of employers to have to look at today is that not only can we not just simply trot out the same employment brand marketing we were using to try to attract talent pre-COVID, we have to have different post-COVID marketing tactics that work today, and probably be willing to monitor, measure, gauge if they're being effective, and if they're not, make an adjustment. Just because you had a preset budget and a marketing strategy on January 1st that you were sure at that point in time was going to prove to be effective doesn't mean that it was. And if you realize by mid-year and the start of the third quarter that it's not working, make some changes and make some adjustments based on the outcome that you're trying to get. I think the other thing that we always try to get employers to think about is have a really clearly defined goal for what your marketing outreach is supposed to do in support of your recruiting practice. Marketing, I think, gets dragged under the bus all the time by being given this huge ask and these gigantic sweeping strategy things that they're supposed to go accomplish, and they don't really always get a clear, tangible, tactical level deliverable on the back end that they can shoot toward. So try your best to align both your marketing and your recruitment strategy to one another, so that marketing can support recruitment and you can then get a measurable result on the back end. And Julia, I don't know if that coincides with what you're doing on the day-to-day, but I hope it's somewhat close and that you agree with me on that.
Yeah, 100% agree. I was going to say, just to add to it, a lot of the time during my consulting with clients is, one, put yourself in the candidate's shoes and what processes would what would you take to be interested in an employer, or, the application process or the decision-making process. And also, we're a very consumer-driven world, right? So what are the different processes that make you want to buy a product? Is it a review? Is it something that you saw on a social media channel? Is it a text alert through some geofencing campaign, whatever it may be? There's so many tools out there, and not one solution fits all. And I'm not going and saying that you need to have this huge budget so you can have a great campaign across all the platforms, but be very aware of your candidate persona and your locations and your industry, so you know that, hey, this solution might only work in this location for this demographic for this job, and run it there. And then maybe do some A/B testing like Angela had touched on just a moment ago, and then try something else in another market and kind of compare those results and set different benchmarks for you. Those are kind of the best practices that I'm seeing. Is, like we said, it's a multi-generational workforce, not one solution fits all, but don't go break the bank trying to push everything out at once using all the tools that are available, but do use as many as you can.
Yeah, and to that point too, Julia, is just as you touched on, looking at the persona of the candidate. Different people engage with technology and engage in looking for jobs in different ways, and you've got to have a really nice mix in your recruitment marketing strategy to address all of those different needs in different ways that people are looking for and engaging with potential opportunities, and making it really clear and straightforward, and thinking through that entire candidate process itself. To your point, putting yourself in the shoes of the candidate, going on your site, looking there, clicking on a job ad. What happens when you do that? Where are you taken to? All of those things are just so important when it comes to thinking through that entire recruitment marketing strategy for those different audiences that you're targeting. And back to what you were saying, David, around success measures, we do have a question that popped up in the chat here. What are some of the common KPIs or goals that you use to measure recruitment marketing success?
We really try to tie it back, at least, and I say it looks like that's from Randy Burton, but I think that's a great question, Randy. I appreciate you dropping that into the chat. We always try to tie any kind of recruitment marketing success KPI or key metric that we're measure back to what is the desired outcome, right? And if we're talking about an engagement where we're simply trying to fill jobs and do active fulfillment of open requisitions, anything that you can do with recruitment marketing that's going to provide a stair step toward filling that requisition is probably a great KPI to start with. It doesn't have to necessarily be as pointed as saying, how many job seekers did you touch through a social media campaign, which then led to how many click to applies, which then led to how many interviews, which then led to how many hires. But what it can be is as simple as measuring in a quarter, for example, how many different forms of marketing outreach are you conducting? What do you think your aggregate number of job seekers is that you're touching? And then are you seeing an increase in overall applicants during that quarter or a decrease, or is it flat? I really think it's up to you. Every organization is going to be different. Again, we're also talking about kind of trying to, wrestle the tiger down by his tail right now, because none of us really knows what that job seeker is going to do. We're trying our best to, guesstimate based on, Julia and Angela and Michelle's points, different demographics, different candidate profiles and postures, and then be able to anticipate the ideal type of marketing that's really going to hook those people and bring them back to an employer. But I think at least, having a 3 to 6 month time frame that you're going to measure and track, and then be willing to look at the data and potentially make an adjustment or a pivot in your strategy based on what the data is telling you. Anything like that is better than not doing any of it. So that would be my general recommendation.
And I think that's an important point, David, right, is it does take time. It's not going to happen overnight. We know everyone is they're desperate for candidates right now. So there's this sense of, I want to see a week from now what changed or what happened as a result. And we know that, yes, we can look at numbers then, but we really have to take a longer look at a time frame to see what are the trends that we're seeing and what's happening over time. And let's A/B test it a little bit and see what's really working and what's not. And it's not going to happen immediately as much as we all want it to, especially if you don't have any type of brand recognition out there to begin with, and nobody knows who you are, right? You've got to start just building some of that initial credibility first and foremost, and try to differentiate yourself from a very crowded recruitment marketing landscape right now. So there's a lot of factors at play there when you think about measuring and looking at KPIs and what can you expect. Another topic that I want us to all talk about is just diversity and inclusion. That's just such a topic of conversation right now across the board, and many organizations are actively working with how to incorporate DE&I into not only their business, but certainly into their recruitment strategies. Angela, I want you to touch on this a bit and talk a little bit about what organizations need to do to support their diversity recruitment with an adaptable workplace that promotes diversity and inclusion. I think that adaptability topic that you touched on when we prepped the other day is such an important one. And I would love for you just to address that a little bit for us.
Sure. So the thing that I think is so important is for first the company or the organization to define what do they think diversity is and be very transparent about it. And I would encourage everyone to not try to isolate this to things that are based on skin color and even gender. There are a lot of people that have disabilities. I'm going to use David as a veteran as an example too, that you can't necessarily, maybe you can recognize the haircut and go, likely going to be a veteran, but we don't really know what this person is in total. We make a lot of assumptions and a lot of them are wrong. And this is what causes the candidates and applicants to not truly feel seen by us as industry leaders. And I think we start off in a very disadvantaged position because of how we treat them. And if we make our entire process more accessible, our websites more accessible, the ability to apply and the ability to get a quick response, all of those things are how we demonstrate to them that we care about them. And it's also how we can demonstrate that we recognize that they may be from a diverse population and we're going to treat them equal. And when they come into the organization, they're going to be included, and they're going to be included from day one. And the way we demonstrate that is during the process of having them go through the application and candidate review process. We have a great opportunity to start the culture and infusing that culture of our companies day one, if we do it right. And I think that most of the organizations that we talk to, at least, they have recognized that they need to make improvements. What I see is the biggest challenge is the improvements they're making are very surface level. They're not truly part of the core values. And I think one of the best ways to change that is for us to start featuring people that are diverse inside our organizations already, and have them talk about what the experience has been working in that company and what are the positive changes that are taking place right now. And that these people that are being looked at for to fill the new jobs, that they are part of that transition. And that's part of the reason why you want them to join you, is because you are committed to making a change, a positive change. And by them joining the organization, they will be part of that. And you elevate their role in the company beyond just the jobs that they do 8 to 5.
Yeah, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to kind of chime in here and kind of branch off of what Angela was talking about from a marketing perspective. I did share with the group last week that I go blue in the face when I talk to clients, because they think, and this isn't everybody, but a lot of the time they think solving the D&I issue is putting out a statement and a stock image that shows a diverse group of people, and it's said and done, and it's going to happen overnight, when actually it's not true. And I even said, I almost like to remove the word diversity altogether and just say inclusion. And it's more about how do we help our clients bring in and make an organization that's almost leveling the playing field, right? It's what is best for your organization? What are the candidates that are going to help you succeed and grow? And making sure that you're providing a sense of inclusion and welcomeness into the organization. Anyone is welcome here. We, all skills are welcome here, all skill sets, all ages, all genders, all religions, all races, whatever it may be, however we communicate that in all of our channels, and don't just do it with a sense of fakeness. You need that authentic representation. So remove the stock photos. I know it's extremely hard to capture real employees, especially right now where we have this very hybrid working model, but find other areas of opportunities. Is it talking about different types of business resource groups maybe that your company has, and how that individuals can come apart and network based on common likenesses, right? Do you show areas of opportunity where your company is volunteering and getting people together in your organization? So it's all about bringing people together, and how do we show that and how it's benefiting the organization, and not necessarily saying, hey, we're extremely diverse because we have XYZ type of people working for us. It's, here are the people, here are our people, and here you can see yourself within this company, is more the general message.
That's a great message, Julia. And as I was listening to Julia answer that, and I appreciate Angela's comments too. And sorry about the haircut, old habits die hard, but I saw Lily Coleman's question and comment in the chat, and I thought it was an important one, and it piggybacks really well off of what Julia and Angela just said. And it's almost along the lines of, yes, there's various tools that can help with any organization's DE&I strategy, from a general toolkit for how to go out and be more visible to different types of job seekers, whether it's based on race, gender, ethnicity, you name it. But to Julia's point, if the concept is more just simply about being an inclusive environment where anyone and everyone can feel welcome, my recommendation would be that's going to drive a better outcome for the business, period. Because at the end of the day, we're still talking about hiring people and filling jobs. We're still talking about recruitment. And we need to all be mindful of the fact that, yes, every one of us believes that there should be a greater focus on DE&I, and it's important, and we need to continue to strive for that. No one's going to say that we shouldn't, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single person is qualified for every single job. And we should still be helping managers identify best qualified, best trained, best right ready now talent for those open jobs that they're trying to fill, because that's going to ultimately boost the bottom line of that organization. I think that sometimes, whether it's a DE&I strategy or something inside, one pocket of DE&I, and we can use military veteran talent as one. I can certainly speak to that from a personal and a professional standpoint. Employers can sometimes get caught up in almost like the trend of, oh, we have to go do something. We have to make a big to-do. We have to throw this on the website and do something. And the reality is, not every single job seeker that falls into one of those categories that's going to qualify for a DE&I metric wants to come work at your company anyway. We joke a lot at Orion because we have a huge military talent practice that if every single one of our customers came to us and said, we have 100 open jobs, please bring us 100 US Marines, we'll hire them all tomorrow. That's a really bad idea for a lot of reasons. And I'm a former Marine, so I am absolutely qualified to say, don't do that. So it's, I think, about the inclusion component first and foremost, and Julia's message, I think, is really refreshing, because if we can kind of lead with that anyone and everyone is included, welcome, available, and an option, it sort of takes a little bit of the air out of the room, I think, on the DE&I piece, without minimizing it as a focus, and still emphasizes the need for the right type of talent for the job to boost bottom line results for your company and help you grow.
Yeah, it's not about the pendulum swinging in the exact opposite direction now, right? It is about having diversity of thought and differing points of view, and having the right person for the right job, right? And having that mix. So it's certainly become and is an important topic. And I still think there are a lot of companies out there looking for answers, looking for help, looking for advice. And so kind of the second point of Lily's question there is it automatically baked in now to the strategies that you're bringing to your clients? Or is it handled more on a case-by-case basis? Do you find that organizations kind of understand what they should be doing and they're already thinking about it when they're coming to you? Or are you having to proactively say to them, what is your DE&I strategy, and how are we going to weave it into this recruitment marketing approach now?
I'll take that one first, and then I'd love to hear Julia and Angela's input on it too. I mean, the short version is, to answer that question, yes. With our practice and with our service lines, we do have a pretty robust and demonstrable DE&I thing that we will include. But Lily, I think it's important to not try to keep up with the Joneses, and always to remember what works best at your organization and what's most important to you might not be most important and work best for the people across the street, and that's okay. And you shouldn't necessarily feel like you have to check all of the same boxes that everyone else is just because they're doing it. Again, keep it simple and keep it focused on your business case and what will make the most sense for that and get you the best results. Ultimately, we have a variety of tools and platforms that we'll offer, but bar none, we're customizing whatever the DE&I thing is for every single organization that we support. And there's a whole bunch out there that aren't worried about it. And it's not like it doesn't matter to them, but they're just not going to put that at the forefront in front of simply getting the best possible talent for their jobs as fast as they can. I think sometimes that needs to be restated by folks. So Julia, I don't know, or Angela, if you've got a different take on that.
I think the way our customer base is working, sorry, Julia.
No, go ahead.
Is that we have 5,500 companies, and what we see is about 10% of them are just starting, like literally this month, they are just starting on addressing diversity and inclusion. And then we have about 10% of them that it's a primary focus of their organization across every single job. And then it's spread out over the middle. And so, it's a perfect bell curve as far as where they at in their own journey. But I think you're absolutely right in the fact that a company should enforce it. They should, it needs to be authentic. Authentic on 10% is better than fake on 100%. And that above all else, you should not have to trade great talent in trying to find diversity. And this is the part that we always tell people is it's not a trade-off. You just have to reach the people and you have to reach them in an authentic way. They will come to you, they will want to work for you, and you will end up having a more diverse workforce. And it's up to you to make it more inclusive.
100% agree with both of you. I don't think I have answer that fits all, but I would 100% say that I'm not sure there's one tool or solution or model that works for everybody. You do have to know where you're specifically located might impact your diversity and inclusion initiatives and your goals that your company is setting you out in front of. But ideally, it's don't pass up a great candidate because you have somebody that fits the role perfectly right now, and don't sit on and wait for the perfect person to come when you do have somebody in the bank, because that person is right now probably already looking at 5 to 6 other opportunities. So don't pass up the opportunity because you're looking for this perfect DE&I candidate that you're told that you have to hire. Right now the goal is to get the people in the door, get the right person in the door, and don't wait on it. But I think going to Lily's question here around, is it kind of offered right out the gate with clients? I've definitely seen the shift in the model of existing clients talking more about how do we bring diversity and inclusion when we've been trying to present it to them right out the gate 3 or 4 years ago. So it's definitely top of mind. But I think our strategy right now, at least within the ADP RPO organization, is talk about it right up front, or at least identify it right up front, along with a million other things that maybe that talent acquisition or that HR solution partner that we're working with has already in mind. So the more people like Angela and David and myself can help our clients at least talk about it before they come to us with that question is really my goal, and really probably the goal of those of us on this call. Don't wait on it, present it right away.
A question just came in related to this topic as well, which is around, it's a pretty, I'm going to call it a pretty tactical question. How do you post a job that demonstrates inclusivity without it looking like you're excluding any portion of the potential job market as well?
I would like to take this one because I worked on it for 1.5 years. It's incredibly difficult, I will say that. But certainly we help companies figure that out manually if they don't want to use the technology to do it. But I will say this, think of it as an invitation. That is the best way to think about. You're inviting a person to take time out of their day and prioritize your company over another. What do you want to say to them that invites them to be part of your organization or to have a conversation? Because just maybe it doesn't work out right now, but they're going to think more highly of your organization. They might share the job opportunity with their network. There's all kinds of benefits that you're going to get out of that. And so when we are training our engineers that work on our algorithms for the job descriptions, that's how we train them. We say, we're going to look at how you invite people to things. And we study invitations and different ways to phrase the invitation to someone and different ways to let them know that they're prioritized and that you care about them joining. And once you start getting that mindset in your head, it changes the verbiage that you use because an invitation does not use words like ninja and extreme, and it just doesn't use that kind of language. And once you start changing your mindset about it, and it does take a little bit of effort, but it starts flowing much better. It's a great team exercise. I always say that a team should be something that can share a large pizza. So a small group of people, not 20 people, but 3 or 4. So have a group of people pulled together and write 1 or 2 job descriptions together as an invitation and then put them out there and you will see the difference. It's a monumental difference.
Great. Thank you, Angela. I don't think we can have a discussion about recruitment marketing without addressing COVID vaccinations. It's such a personal decision and there are such strong feelings on both sides. Just this morning, in fact, I saw that Kaiser Permanente put more than 2,200 employees, or slightly more than 1% of its workforce, on unpaid leave because they've chosen not to get vaccinated. And they have until, I think it was December 1st, to do so in order to return to work. So you think about that now in conjunction with the very, very tight market that we have for looking for employees right now. So let's talk a bit about the impact of imposing safety measures with vaccine mandates on recruitment efforts. How can employers balance the potentially competing forces here?
Who's going to
Anyone
take
wants
that
to
one?
jump at this one?
David, I was going to say, I knew you had a great response to this last time. I also have a great response. You can go ahead if you want.
Fine. I'm glutton for punishment. I'll take it and I'll stumble through it, and then that'll set up Julia and Angela to look really, really brilliant. But that's fine. I appreciate it. No, we talked about this last week. I'm sure everyone that's an attendee for our session right now, as sick of it as we all are, regardless of where you stand on one side or the other, or if you're in the middle, we're all beyond tired of even just having to talk about it. And it's kind of a nice break when you can go a full 24 or 48 hours and not have some sort of a COVID conversation. So unfortunately for you all that are attendees, if you've made it that far today, we've now ruined that for you because we're going to have one right now. So there you go. I actually think that it's just a fact of life. And whether you're for it or against it, it's the reality for so many organizations, whether we're talking about a business, an employer, a civic organization, a higher learning institution. The fact of the matter is, for people's safety and health and all of the factors that we all already know about, there are many organizations that are just choosing to minimize risk by requiring the vaccination. So if that's you and your company, whether you like it or not, and that decision's been made, whether you like it or not, and you're now concerned about the impact that could potentially have on your recruitment, the only thing that I would share with you is that it's kind of a little bit of an equalizer. And I actually think it's becoming, this is what we talked about last week, a little bit of a natural qualifier, not a disqualifier for your candidate pool, because you're going to get applicants that are really serious about coming to work at your company, rather than those that are maybe on the fence a little bit. In the scenario that I used when Angela and Julia and Michelle and I were all chatting last week is, the dreaded 100% travel job, right? That as a recruiter, the employer comes to you and asks you to go fill it. And you always will get those candidates that talk the talk and walk the walk, just trying to see how far they're going to get in the interview process, but they have no intent whatsoever of taking a job that's going to require them to travel 100% of the time or even 75% of the time. I think the same is true with this. You're either going to get applicants that are already vaccinated or totally comfortable with being vaccinated and just want to go work, or they're not even going to apply. They're going to naturally kind of, self-select out. You won't see them. And, although that will limit your candidate pool a little bit, and the data is all over the place on, is it 20%? Is it 35%? How many people in the potential workforce are saying, no, I will never get vaccinated? We're probably never going to know. But, one thing is for sure, you're probably only going to see applicants that are really serious about coming to work at your company, which as a recruiting pro, I would rather be dealing with that reality than the what if game of how far am I going to get someone through process and then find out that they're not going to be qualified because they withheld the information or they didn't really think we were serious about requiring it. And now we've lost a great hire at the 11th hour when we would have liked to known early on that they just weren't going to be an eligible person for us. So I don't know if that helps answer that or not. Julie or Angela, you guys have any different perspective on it than that?
I wouldn't say different, but actually the one thing that I heard, David, you say last week was, if you are a company who has to force a vaccine mandate or different types of vaccine policies, make sure that you're not making other parts of the job very limiting. David, you had kind of said, don't say, hey, you have to have this, and this requirement. Plus you can't smoke, you can't take breaks, you have 14-hour shifts, you work weekends. Like, try to find some kind of compromise for all the things that you're layering on top of the job. Because if a candidate sees that in reality, would you want to take a job that requires so many negative points? It's just going to automatically tell candidates whether they're vaccinated or not. See you later. So I think that was something, you kind of had shared with us last week that I thought was really, really interesting and very valid. The other thing that I am seeing from the more of the marketing side in RPO world is be transparent. It is what it is, and make sure you communicate that up front, whether it's in your marketing tools or during the interview process, in the job description, just so you can weed out candidates before they even get the interview into the interview or the hire process before they find out, hey, oh, by the way, we're mandatory vaccines. And now you've wasted so much time interviewing a candidate and finding maybe a potential candidate's like, nope, now I'm going to take myself out of the running. I'm finding a lot of companies are being very discreet about that information, kind of hiding it in the fine print, which I think is wrong. I don't know if I get in trouble for that, but I do think it's wrong. I think we need to be very transparent. And then there are a lot of companies right now that aren't really sure what they're going to do. So even communicate that, hey, right now, this is our policy. It might change down the road, and we promise to keep that information, at top of mind in front of you as soon as possible. So just being very transparent and communicative about what your policies are, even if they're going to change.
One thing that we're seeing that's a tangent to this is that children who either are at a school where they have to change the school hours because there's a COVID outbreak that happens, or there's someone in their family that gets ill. So even though the individual has had the vaccination, it may still change their ability to work for a company. And we're trying to remind our employer customers of this, that whether they're vaccinated or not is just one component of humans having to deal with COVID right now. And I think we've got to try to be as empathetic as possible because there's a lot of people that have had their lives in upheaval over someone in their family being ill, and they have to deal with it. And so this is just one more layer to that. And I hope we can get away from the political aspect of it and not make it political, because it really is a health issue that we've got to figure out how to deal with, because I don't think it's going to go away. I think we've got to figure out how to deal with it over the long term.
Yeah, so such a great point, Angela. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I really want to use those to focus on technology. And specifically, what is technology's role when it comes to supporting the employer brand, both now and in the future? And maybe Angela, I'll turn it over to you to start discussion on this one.
Because you know it's my favorite topic.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I love the fact that we, as a company, can use technology to remove bias because it increases diversity, which removes less bias or more bias rather. So it's kind of it's a really positive loop. But I know that there's a lot of, I think people feel challenged about, like, is it going to be expensive? Is it going to hard to get started? Is it going to do things that may put my job at risk and maybe I'm not as important? And I think recruiting is always people to people. There is never a moment that recruitment is not. And recruiting marketing is probably the most people to people. And we don't deal in recruitment marketing necessarily. We deal at very top of the funnel sourcing and matching. And so we're in a little bit different space, and we work a lot with marketing agencies. And the thing that I see is that recruiters are so overworked, and they have this additional layer of diversity now thrown on top of them, the requirement for diversity. And I really would hope that executives and companies can take an empathetic look at these recruitment teams and identify the fact that they are responsible for hiring every single person in that company in the hardest job market that we've ever had in recorded history during a pandemic. And then we've layered this additional diversity requirement, and the things that we're expecting them to do are absolutely ridiculous. They have to have technology. I don't know how people are doing it without it. They need a way to be able to get things done faster, to be more efficient, and be able to see what's working and what's not working and change and adjust their strategy. And I would say the number one thing, if I could tell anyone in the C-suite, is you have got to give the recruitment teams more resources. Part of it needs to go to technology, and part of it needs to go to amplifying their teams. And part of it needs to go to increased marketing that is targeted at the right people that you need right now. And they're just not providing ample resources, and they're hoping for a dream of, somehow recruiters are going to pull something out of a hat. And we see the numbers. We see how competitive it is. It's just unrealistic without the use of technology to expect these teams to achieve what they need to achieve for our economy to keep growing.
Perfect.
I would 100% agree with that. I think ADP RPO actually uses the words people, process, technology. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. So, there's so many technology tools that make the process, they change quarterly, every day, how we use them. One of the biggest tools I've seen out there right now is Indeed virtual events. It's probably one of the highest rising technology. I don't know if you would technically call it a technology or more of a social media, solution. I think it's a little bit of both. That's connecting everybody in this hybrid work model quicker in a hiring process, because it's connecting people to people and allowing them to interview from anywhere, get in the door quicker, get reviewed quicker. So I think, there's lots of different technologies out right now that have come to rise during the pandemic that are something everybody should be taking advantage of. And like Angela said, more resources, more commitment to that technology to make things easier on everyone, both sides of the process.
Perfect. Well, I think we are out of time here. So thank you, David, Angela, and Julia, for such an insightful discussion. And thank you everyone who attended. I hope you'll stick with us as we move into the fireside chat about transformational talent acquisition challenges with Trent Cotton and my friend Erin Peterson. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome job, everyone. We'll see you at the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you all.